In woodlands of the bright and early world, when love was to himself, yet new and warm and stainless, played like morning with a flower, Ruru, with his young bride, Priyamvada. Fresh-cheeked and dew-eyed white Priyamvada opened her budded heart of crimson bloom to love, to Ruru. Ruru, a happy flood of passion, round a lotus dancing, thrilled, blinded with his soul's waves, Priyamvada. To him, the earth was a bed for this soul flower. To her, all the world was filled with his embrace. Her eyes, like deep and infinite wells, lured his attracted soul, and her touch thrilled, not lightly, though so light. The joy prolonged and sweetness of the lingering of her lips was every time a nectar of surprise to her lover. He in her found a warm world of sweets, and lived of ecstasy secure, nor deemed any new hour could match that early bliss. Wet with new rains, the morning earth, released from her fierce centuries and burning suns, lavished her breath in greenness. Poignant flowers thronged all her eager breast, and her young arms cradled a childlike bounding life that played and would not cease, nor ever weary grew of her bright promise. For all was joy and breeze and perfume, colour and bloom and ardent rays of living, and delight desired the world. That a day he had left, while yet the east was dark, and into the river swam out, exulting in the sting and swift, sharp-edged desire around his limbs, and sprang, wet, to the bank and streamed into the wood. But when a happy sheltered heat he felt, and heard contented voice of living things, harmonious with the noon, he turned and swiftly went homeward, yearning to Priyamvada. She, tearing a jasmine bloom with waiting hands, stood drooping, petulant, but heard at once his footsteps, and before she was aware, a sudden smile of exquisite delight leaped to her mouth, and a great blush of joy surprised her cheeks. She for a moment stood, beautiful with her love. Before she died, with a pitiful cry she paled. Moaning, her stricken limbs collapsed. But petrified, in awful dumb surprise, he gazed. Then, waking with a bound, was by her, all panic expectation. As he came, he saw a brilliant flash of corals evade the sunlight, and with hateful gorgeous hood darted into green safety, hissing death. Voiceless he sank beside her, and stretched out his arms and desperately touched her face, as if to attract her soul to live, and sought, beseeching with his hands, her bosom. Oh, she was warm, and cruel hope pierced him. Over her leaned Roro and waited for dead lips to move. Still in the green wood lay Priambada, and Roro rose not from her, but with eyes emptied of glory hung above his dead, only without a word, without a tear. Then he moved. Then rigorous memory, through all his body shuddering, awoke. And he looked up and knew the place, and recognized greenness immutable, and saw old trees, and the same flowers still bloom. He felt the bright indifference of earth, and all the lonely uselessness of pain. Then, lifting up the beauty of his brow, he spoke with sorrow pale. O grim, cold death, but I will not, like ordinary men, satiate thee with cries, and falsely woo thee, and make my grief thy theatre. O secrecy terrific, darkness vast, at which we shudder. Somewhere, I know not where, somehow, I know not how, I shall confront thy gloom, tremendous spirit, and seize with hands and prove what thou art, and what man. There, long months he travelled between grief and grief, reliving thoughts of her with every pace, measuring vast pain in his immortal mind. And his heart cried in him as when a fire roars through wide forests and the branches cry, burning towards heaven in torture glorious. So burned immense his grief within him. Then fate was shaken, and the gods grieved for him, of his silence grown afraid. Therefore, from peaks divine came flashing down immortal Agni, and to the Ashwat tree cried in the voice that slays the world, O tree, that liftest thy enormous branches, able to shelter armies, more than armies now shelter, be famous, house a brilliant god. But the grief grows in Ruru's breast, up-piled, as it wrestles with its anguished barricades, in silence, an impending flood, and gods immortal grow afraid. Divert the wrath into thy boughs, Ashwata. Thou shalt be my throne, glorious, though in eternal pangs, yet worth much pain to harbour divine fire. In the same noon came Ruru. His mind had paused, lured for a moment by soft wandering gleams into forgetfulness of grief. For thoughts gentle and so sweetly came, his blind heart dreamed she lived. Slow the Ashwata tree bent down its leaves, and smote his cheek, and touched his heavy hair. And Ruru turned, illumined. For a moment, one blissful moment, he had felt 'twas she. Then he, turning, saw her not, but the guilty tree, shrinking. O Ashwata tree, wantonly who hast mocked my anguish with the wind, but thou no more have joy of the cool wind, nor green delight, but live thy guilty leaves in fire. The vast tree groaned through its leaves, recognizing its fate, then smoldered. Lines of living fire rushed up the girth and hissed serpentine in the unconsuming leaves. Great tormented creature stood wide in agony. One half was green and earthly, the other a weird brilliance, filled with the speed and cry of endless flame. Ruru passioned on, and came with eve to secret grass, and a green opening, moist in a cool lustre, leaned upon a tree that bathed in fairy air, and saw the sky through branches, and a single parrot loud screamed from its top. There stood a golden boy, half naked, with bright limbs, all beautiful. Delicate they were, in sweetness apt, absolute. In his hands he swung a bow, not such as human archers use, for the string moved and murmured like many bees, and nameless fragrance made the casual air a peril. He on Ruru that fair face turned, and his steps with lovely gesture chained. Who art thou here in forests wandering, and thy young exquisite face is solemnized with pain? And Ruru, mastered by the god, replied, I know thee by thy cruel beauty bright, Karma, who makest many worlds one fire, with a thrilled eternal smile that makes the spring. The lover of Rathi golden-limbed replied to Ruru, Mortal, I am he. I am that madam who informed the stars with lustre, and on life's wide canvas fill pictures of light and shade, of joy and tears. Make ordinary moments wonderful, and common speech a charm. Mortal, I am the light in stars, of flowers the bloom, the nameless fragrance that pervades creation. But behind me, older than me, he comes with night and cold tremendous shade. Hard is the way to him, most hard to find, harder to tread, for perishable feet, almost impossible. Yet, O fair youth, if thou must needs go down, and thou art strong in passion and in constancy, nor easy the soul to slay that has survived such grief, steel then thyself to venture, armed by love. Yet listen first, what heavy trade they drive who would win back their dead to human arms. A sole thing the gods demand from all men living, sacrifice. Nor without this shall any crown be grasped. Wilt thou yield up, O lover, half thy sweet portion of this light and gladness, thy little insufficient share, and vainly give to another? But swift came back the lover's voice, like passionate rain. Oh, too deeply I know, the lover is not different from the loved, nor is their silence dumb to each other. He contains her heart and feels her body in his. He flushes with her heat, chills with her cold. And when she dies, oh, when she dies, oh me, the emptiness, the maim, the life, no life, the sweet and passionate oneness lost. Oh, wing me rather to her, by eloquent princes of the spring, in whatsoever wintry shores she roam. Once more, a light of beauty, immortal through the limbs, gleaming of the boy god, and soft sweet face, glorifying him, flushed. And he replied, Go then, O thou dear youth, and bear this flower in thy hand warily. For thou shalt come to that high meeting of the Ganges pure, with vague and violet ocean. There arise and loudly appeal, my brother, the wild sea. He spoke and stretched out his immortal hand, and Ruru's met it. All his young limbs yearned with dreadful rapture, shuddering through them. He felt in his fingers subtle and certain bloom, a quivering magnificence, half fire, whose petals changed like flame, and from them breathed dangerous attraction and alarmed delight, as at a peril near. From Shatudra and Bipasha, streams once holy, and loved Iravathi, and swift, clear Chandrabha, and Bitosta's toil for man, went Ruru to bright, sumptuous lands, where nature lay reclined in dumb delight, alone with woodlands and the voiceless hills. In a thin, soft eve, Ganges spread far her multitudinous waves, a glimmering restlessness with voices large. And from the forests of that half-seen bank, a boat came, heaving over it, white-winged, with a sole silent helmsman, marble pale. Then Ruru by his side stepped in. They went down the mysterious river and beheld the great banks widen out of sight. The world was water, and the skies to water plunged. All night, with a dim motion gliding down, he felt the dark against his eyelids, felt as in a dream, more real than daylight, the helmsman with his dumb and marble face. When the darkness paled, he heard a moan of mightier waves, and had the wide great sense of ocean and the depths below our feet. But the boat stopped. The pilot lifted on him his marble gaze, coeval with the stars. Then, in the white-winged boat, the boy arose and saw around him the vast sea, all grey and heaving in the pallid dawning light. Loud, Ruru cried across the murmur, "Hear me, O inarticulate grey ocean, hear! If any cadence in thy infinite rumour was caught from lover's moan, O sea, open thy abysses to my mortal tread. For I would travel to the despairing shades, The spheres of suffering where entangled dwell souls unreleased, and the untimely dead who weep remembering. Thither, O guide me. No despicable wayfarer, but Ruru, but son of a great rishi, from all men on earth selected for peculiar pangs, special disaster. He held the flower out, subtly glimmering, and like a living thing, the huge sea trembled, then rose, calling, and filled the sight with waves, converging all its giant crests. Towards him, innumerable waters loomed, and heaven threatened. Horizon on horizon moved, dreadfully swift. Then, with a prone wide sound, all ocean hollowing, drew him swiftly in, curving with monstrous menace over him. Monstrous voices to his ear were close, and bodiless terrors with their dimness seized him in an obscurity phantasmal. Thus, with agony of soul, to the grey waste he came. Hopeless Patel, the immutable country, where neither sun nor rain arrives, nor happy labour of the human plough fruitfully turns to soil, but in vague sands and indeterminable strange rocks and caverns that into silent blackness huge recede, dwell the great serpent and his hosts, writhed forms, sinuous, abhorred, through many horrible leagues, coiling in a half-darkness. Shapes he saw, and heard the hiss, and knew the lambent light, loathsome, but past, compelling his strong soul. Pale he arrived, into a nether air, by anguish moved, and heard before him cries that pierced the heart. Human, not, and issued shaken by the great river accursed. Maddened it ran, anguished, importunate, and in its waves the drifting ghosts their agony endured. Now rose from the waves a golden shuddering arm, and now a face. Torn piteous sides were seen, and breasts that quailed. Over them moaned the penal waters on. He saw astride the dolorous flood a mighty bridge, paved with mosaic fire, all restless, and a woman clothed in flame, with hands calamitous that held a sword, stood of the quaking passage, sentinel. Magnificent and dire, her burning face. Pass on, O Brigu's son. The flower protects thee from my hands. She stretched one arm towards him, and with violence majestic over the horrid arch compelled. Alone he stood upon an inner bank, with strange black dreary mosses covered, and perceived a dim and level plain without one flower. Over it paced a multitude immense, with gentle faces occupied by pain. Young sad children, of their childlike faces robbed, naked they paced, with falling hair and gaze drooping upon their bosoms, weak as flowers that die for want of rain, and murmuring. Pale girls and quiet children came and knelt, and with large sorrowful eyes into his looked. Speechless, they followed him with clinging eyes. Then to a sullen building weird he came, with grave colossal pillars round. One dome roofed the whole brooding edifice, like cloud. And at the door strange shapes were pacing, armed. He entered and beheld a silent hall, dim and unbounded. Moving then like one who up a dismal stair seeks ever light, attained a dais, brilliant doubtfully, with flaming pediment, and round it coiled python and naga, monstrous, Chorutkara, Taksak and Vasuki himself, immense, magic Karkotaka, all flecked with fire. There sat supreme, with those compassionate and lethal eyes, whom many names, whom many natures holds. Yama, the strong pure Hades, sad and subtle. Dharma, who keeps the laws of old untouched. Kritanta, who ends all things, and at last himself shall end. On either side of him, the four-eyed dogs, mysterious, rested prone, watchful, with huge heads of their paws advanced. And emanations of the Godhead dim moved near him, shadowy or serpentine. Vast time and cold, irreparable death. Then Ruru came and bowed before the throne, and the sad voice was heard. What breathing man bows at the throne of Hades? By what force, spiritual or communicated, troubles his living beauty, the dead grace of hell? And what needs love in this pale realm? The warm great love. All worlds his breath confounds, Mars' sullen order and old steadfastness. Let him be shown the glory he would renounce. And over the flaming pediment there moved, as on a frieze, a march of sculptures, carved by Phidias for the Virgin strong and pure, most perfect ones of all things seen in earth or heaven. In Athens on the Acropolis, but now dismembered, now disrupt, or as in Buddhist cavern or Orison temple, large aspirations architectural, warrior and dancing girl, adept and king, and conquering pomps and daily peaceful groups dream delicately on. Softening with beauty, great Bhubaneswar, the Almighty's house, with sculptural suggestion, so aligned, scenes future on a pediment of fire. There Ruru saw himself, divine with age. Above this earth's half-day he saw, amazed, the dawn of that mysterious face, and all the universe in beauty merge. Mad, the boy thrilled upwards, then spent, ebbed back. Over his mind, as birds across the sky sweep and are gone, the vision of those fields and drooping faces came. Almost he heard the burdened river with human anguish wail. Then, with a sudden fury gathering his soul, he hurled out of it half its life and fell like lightning, prone. Triumphant rose the shadow, chill and deepened giant night. Only the dice flickered in the gloom, and those snake eyes of cruel fire subdued. And with a sudden burst like spring, life woke in the strong lover overtried. He rose and left dim death. 12 times he crossed Boithoriny, the river dolorous. 12 times resisted hell and hurried down into the ominous pit where plunges black the vast stream thundering. And in the last hell, irremediable, where Ganges clots into that fatal pool, appalled, he saw her, pallid, listless pair. Dumb drooped she. Round her, shapes of anger, armed, stood dark like thunderclouds. But Ruru sprang upon them, burning with the admitted God. They from his touch, like ineffectual fears, vanished. Then, soul with her, trembling, he cried the old glad name, and crying bent to her and touched. And at the touch, the silent knots of hell were broken, and its sombre dream of dreadful stately pains at once dispersed. When he woke, he heard the coil insist on sweetness and the voice of happy things, content with sunlight. The warm sense was round him of old essential earth, known hues and custom, familiar, tranquilizing body and mind. As in its natural wave a lotus feels. Thrilling, he felt beneath his bosom her. Oh, warm and breathing were those rescued limbs against the greenness, vivid, palpable, white, with great black hair and real, and her cheeks, old softness, and her mouth, a dewy rose. Hesitating, he kissed her eyelids, sighing with a slight sob, she woke, and earthly large her eyes looked upward into his. She stretched her arms up, yearning, and their souls embraced. Then, twixt a brief sobbing laughter and blissful tears, clinging with all her limbs to him, oh love, the green, green world, the warm sunlight, the earth breathed round them, glad of her children, and the coil's voice persisted in the morning of the world.